Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we are diving into the one of the most important concept in the Node.js. So it's single-threaded nature. So let's try to learn about. We are learning about now. We are entering into the cluster module. So what is this cluster module and why we need to use it? Before learning about this cluster module, first of all we need to understand about the single-threaded nature and how it stays super fast despite running in just one thread only. So that also we'll try to read, and also we'll cover the magic of the thread pool and why it is a game changer for handling the heavy tasks. So let's try to understand this one. So now let's go to here. What does a single thread mean? Node.js runs all the JavaScript on a single thread using the event loop, meaning only one operation executes at a time. Unlike multi-threaded languages, Node.js sticks to one thread for JavaScript execution. Here what I was trying to do is, let's talk about the single threaded means in Node.js. Simply put, Node.js runs all your JavaScript code on a single thread using something called the event loop. So that is the main thing. This means only one operation runs at a time, unlike other languages that might use the multiple threads like juggle tasks in the parallel. Node.js sticks to only one thread for the JavaScript execution of your JavaScript code. So you might be thinking that one thread, that sounds slow, right? But here is the catch. Node.js is blazing fast for web servers and the APIs. How it is, let's find out in the next section. So why is Node.js so fast? So the secret source behind the Node.js is the library called libuv. Okay? Libuv is like the backstage crew that makes everything run smoothly. Here is how it will work. So Node.js typically uses the libuv to offload the IO operations like file reading and network requests to the system kernel or a thread pool. These tasks run in the background, separate from the main JavaScript thread. So when done, libuv notifies the event loop to trigger the callback, enabling the asynchronous non-blocking performance. So that is the main task. So that means here, so Node.js gives all the IO operations like reading the files, making the network requests, or reading the querying the databases. These all the things will be given to the system kernel or a thread pool. So these IO tasks, so whatever the IO task you are trying to do, so these all the tasks run in the background, okay, separate from the main JavaScript thread. So once the task is done, so libuv notifies the event loop, which then triggers the callback function in JavaScript. So while your JavaScript runs on a single thread, IO operations are asynchronous and happens in parallel. The non-blocking magic is why Node.js is so efficient for handling the tons of requests in web servers and APIs. So what is the problem with the single threaded Node.js? So, but there is one downside because this one. So Node.js runs on a single thread and it uses only one CPU core by default. If you have got a fancy server with 4 or 8 cores, Node.js won't tap into them out of the box. This becomes a problem when you have a heavy request like image processing or a CPU intensive calculations. That one task can block the entire event loop, slowing down your app for everyone else. Not ideal, right? So that is the main reason. So the problem with the single threaded thing. So then we will be using the cluster module. So what is this cluster module? Why use the cluster module means you need to understand. So here, so how we can fix that one? So single thread, right? So for example, when any logic, heavy computation logic is executing means the event loop will be busy in executing that logic. Then what happens? So all the requests and all those things will be get blocked. So how we can handle this one is, so even so now how do we fix this one is, so that is using the cluster module. The cluster module lets you spawn multiple child process, okay, each running on a separate CPU core. Multiple of your Node.js app, each running on a separate CPU. This means that you can handle more load in parallel, making full use of your server's power. So that's the thing. So this allows the Node.js to handle more requests in parallel, fully utilizing the server power. Each worker runs its own event loop, boosting app performance under the load. So that is the main thing. Each child worker runs its own event loop. So your app can process more requests simultaneously. Pretty cool, right? So that is the main thing. So now here you need to understand about the thread pool also. What is the thread pool in the Node.js? So why I am trying to tell you about the thread pool means, so whenever you are getting an IO operations or anything, so I told you that it will be handled to the background task, right? So that is nothing but the thread pool only. So now let's answer the super important question. What is a thread pool? And I know we mentioned it earlier. Let's break it down. So now here the thread pool. Okay, the thread pool is a group of background threads managed by the libuv. By default, it has only 4 threads. Okay, and it is used for tasks that can't be handled purely asynchronously by the operating system. So think of things like reading or writing the large files, performing the DNS lookup, compressing the data with libraries like zlib, and doing the crypto operations like password hashing with a script, bcrypt, or something like that. Okay, so these all the things will be done by the background tasks with the thread. So for example, let's say that when you ask Node.js, do something like read a big file, it hands that task to the libuv. Libuv assigns it to one of the threads in the thread pool. That thread does the heavy lifting in the background, so the main JavaScript thread stays free. Once the task is done, libuv sends the result back to the event loop, which runs your callback function. This setup ensures that even blocking operations don't slow down your app, keeping everything fast and responsive. So that is the main thing. So here, I am trying to explain you the same thing. How the thread pool works is, when Node.js receives heavy task, libuv assigns it to a thread in the pool. That thread does the work in the background, keeping the main thread JavaScript free. Once complete, libuv sends the result back to the event loop to run your callback. So thread pool benefits. This design prevents blocking, keeping the event loop happy and your app fast and responsive even during heavy operations. Thread pool plus event loop is equal to efficient non-blocking Node.js performance. So that's it. So what is the recap what we have learned about this Node.js? So what is the single-threaded JavaScript execution via event loop and fast async IO handled by the libuv in the background? And we have learned about the thread pool manages blocking tasks with the 4 threads. And the last one is the cluster module enables the multi-core utilization with the child process. So now mastering these things helps building the scalable high-performance Node.js apps. So that's it guys about this one. So thanks for watching. Like, subscribe and hit the bell icon for our next video on the cluster module with hands-on coding. So if you have any questions, drop them in the comments. See you in the next time. Bye.